Everyone who's ever seen Mulholland Drive has performed the same ritual. They sit in the dark, they watch the credits roll, and then, in a state of genuine disturbance, they ask, "What in the world did I just watch?" They go online, they search for timelines, decode Lynch's 10 clues, map the doubles, and debate whether the cowboy is a dream warden or a studio executive. The entire culture around this film is an obsession with solving it. But what if that's the wrong question? What if by asking what does it mean, we're performing the very evasion the film is warning us against? Mulholland Drive doesn't feel like a puzzle, it feels like a panic attack, disguised as a movie. It feels like shame, like jealousy, like waking up in a cold sweat from a dream where everything was perfect, only to remember who you really are. If this film were truly meant to be solved, if its primary function was to be decoded, it wouldn't leave you with this profound, gut-wrenching unease. It would leave you with an answer. The confusion is the point, so let's reframe the question. What if Mulholland Drive isn't confusing because it's abstract or surreal, but because it is brutally, unflinchingly honest about what happens when the dream you've built your entire identity around looks you in the eye and says, "No, not you." We've been sold a lie about difficult art. The lie is this: if a movie is confusing, it must be intellectually profound. And if you don't understand it, the flaw is in your comprehension, not the film's clarity. This lie turns art into a status object. It transforms Mulholland Drive from an experience into a test. Forums, video essays, and countless articles aren't just analyzing it, they're performing a kind of intellectual alchemy, trying to turn its emotional poison into intellectual gold. We make flowcharts of its plot. We treat Lynch's playful, misleading clues like a Rosetta Stone. Confusion becomes a badge of honor, proof that you're engaging with high art. But this lie serves a protective function. It allows us to intellectualize what is fundamentally an emotional wound. It's far safer to treat Diane Selwyn's breakdown as a narrative riddle than it is to recognize it as a psychological state. Because if it's just a puzzle, we can solve it. We can be the smart ones who get it. But if it's a document of a shattered self, then we have to feel it. And that's infinitely more dangerous. This cultural ritual of solving misses the point entirely. Mulholland Drive is not a lock to be picked. It's a wound to be witnessed. The film doesn't reward understanding, it rewards recognition. The chill you feel isn't from uncovering a secret plot, it's from seeing a part of yourself, the part that knows what rejection costs, staring back at you from the screen. To understand the collapse, we first have to understand the dream. Hollywood in Mulholland Drive isn't just a setting, it's an identity factory. It's a universe that doesn't just make movies so much as it manufactures selves. In this world, you are not who you are. You are who you are about to become. Your past, your accent, your name, they're all provisional, waiting to be exchanged for a better, shinier version. Identity here is terrifyingly conditional. Talent isn't enough. Desire isn't enough. You must be chosen. Your value is conferred from the outside by a director, a casting couch, a whispered name at a party. The early sun-drenched Betty section of the film captures this euphoric pre-rejection state. It's not a fantasy in the sense of being unreal, it's the aspirational identity. It's the version of Diane that exists in the hopeful space between "I'm gonna be a star" and the industry's verdict. Everything is heightened, saturated, polite to the point of surrealism. Betty isn't just an actress, she's a radiant angel whose talent stuns professionals. Rita isn't just a lover, she's a mysterious amnesiac offering total devotion. This is the self as a perfect coherent story before the reality answers back. This is the identity you inhibit when you still believe the dream will validate you. It's the universe's most seductive product, the prototype self fresh off the line, awaiting its stamp of approval. The entire system depends on you believing this version is not just possible, but imminent. So here's the core of it. Mulholland Drive is not really a film about failure. It's a film about rejection. Failure is survivable. Failure has logic. You tried, you fell short, you try again. Failure happens within. It's part of the process. Rejection is different. Rejection is existential. It doesn't say try harder, it says you are not needed. You don't belong here. The story does not require you. For Diane Selwyn, the rejection is total. It's professional, losing the role to Camilla. It's also romantic, Camilla discarding her for Adam. And it's also personal, the subsequent erasure of her worth. This isn't a setback, it's an annihilation of the conditional identity the factory helped her build. The dream doesn't just die, it actively, maliciously refuses her. This is why the film fractures. The shift in tone, the slippage in logic, the descent into nightmare. This isn't non-linear storytelling. It's psychological fracture, rendered cinematically. Linear narratives are for stable selves. Diane's self has been invalidated. The movie's form mirrors her psychotic state. Time stops making sense because her future has been cancelled. Identities blur because the boundary between who she hoped to be and who she is has been violently breached. The event of rejection isn't a plot point, it's the fault line that splits the entire film in two. So what does a mind do when faced with this level of existential rejection? It doesn't just get sad, it performs an emergency operation by inventing. The invention of Betty Elms isn't madness, it's a desperate, ingenuous act of psychological self-preservation. Faced with the unbearable reality of being Diane, the rejection, the jealousy, the guilt, her psyche rewrites her story. If the dream won't have her, she'll create a new dream where she's not just included, but is essential. Betty is Diane's defense mechanism made of flesh. She's more successful as her audition stuns while Diane's failed. She's more admired, welcomed, loved, where Diane was isolated. She's more innocent, a truth seeker, while Diane is a murderer. She is less rejected. The industry conspiracy now targets the director, Adam, not her. This is the mind's brutal logic. If I was not chosen, then that must not have been the real me. The real me is this better, purer, chosen one over here. The film visualizes this through doubling mirrors and role reversals, not as a puzzle for us to decode, but as the literal landscape of a psyche trying to survive. The invented self isn't an escape from reality, it's a shield against it. It allows Diane to continue existing, even if only as a ghost in a delusion of her own making. This is why the film feels the way it does. Its logic isn't narrative logic, it's dream logic. And dreams don't function to tell stories. They function to protect, to process, to distort unbearable truths into survivable fictions. Time slips in the film because trauma exists outside of linear time. The moment of rejection echoes backward and forward, infecting everything. Logic dissolves because the mind, under the stress, connects things through emotional resonance, not cause and effect. The terrifying bum behind Winkies isn't there to advance a plot. He's the embodied god-awful feeling of failure that Diane cannot face, so he lurks at the edges of the dream. Scenes bleed into each other's emotional leakage, and jealousy seeps into a coffee cup, while guilt transforms into a blue key. The movie confuses you not because it's broken, but because the character is protecting herself. The disorientation you feel is a direct transmission of Diane's psychic disintegration. The form is the content. We are not watching a story about a breakdown, we are experiencing cinema that has been subordinate to the physics of a crumbling self. And here is where the film turns the lens on us. Our frantic desire to solve Mulholland Drive, to chart it and explain it, is its own form of avoidance. It's our version of inventing Betty. Faced with the film's raw depiction of rejection, shame, and self-annihilation, we, the audience, choose to intellectualize. We become the detectives in Diane's shattered world because being a detective feels safer than being a witness. Decoding feels like control, recognition feels like vulnerability. This is why the film resonates so deeply with so many. We may not have hired a hitman, but we know the ecosystems that condition our worth. The career we didn't get, the validation that never came, the feeling of being passed over, of being almost chosen. We know what it's like to craft an aspirational self for LinkedIn, or the first date for a family dinner. a self that is forever awaiting its confirmation. Mulholland Drive terrifies us because it shows what happens when that confirmation never arrives, and the cost of the story we invent to compensate. Our obsession with solving it is our own nervous whistle past that graveyard. The ending of Mulholland Drive is not about the answer, the suicide, the ghosts, the whisper of Silencio. This isn't a plot resolution, it's an emotional one. It's the final collapse of the defense. The dream couldn't hold. The invented identity, Betty, was too flimsy a shield against the truth of Diane's actions and her reality. The blue box opened and it contained nothing, because the truth it held was the void of her own negation. The dinner party where she is utterly dispossessed, the blue key that signifies her murderer's guilt, the monstrous return of the cheerful elderly couple from Deep River, these are not puzzle pieces. They are the final unbearable pressures of the real breaking through. When the dream dissolves, what's left is not truth, but grief. And grief doesn't speak in clear sentences. It speaks in jittering hallucinations and haunting whispers. The film ends not with punishment, but with exposure. Diane is not being judged by the film. She is being seen in all of her devastated, annihilated entirety. The silence that follows is the silence after the story you told yourself about your life has finally stopped talking. So let's expose the lie. The lie we tell about Mulholland Drive is that its confusion is the point, and that its genius is in its complexity. The truth is far more profound and far more frightening. Mulholland Drive is a meticulously detailed map of what the mind does when being unchosen becomes unbearable to live with. Its subject isn't dreams, it's identity. Specifically, what we do to our own identity when the world we hoped would validate it refuses to cooperate. It shows us that the self is not a fixed thing, but a story we tell. And when the plot we're depending on falls apart, we don't just change the story. We can, in desperation, become a different character altogether. We invent a better version, a chosen version, an innocent version. We do this not to escape reality, but to survive its verdict. Mulholland Drive isn't confusing. It's a portrait of what happens when the dream rejects us, and we create a desperate, beautiful, tragic version of ourselves, so we don't have to feel that rejection all at once. The monster behind the diner isn't the film. It's the part of us that knows how close we are to becoming Diane Selwyn ourselves, clutching a blue key in a lonely apartment with nothing left to dream. The next time you watch it, don't look for the solution. Don't look for the timeline. Just look at Diane. Look at the hellish horror of failed ambition and the silence that follows. Because once the Technicolor fantasy is stripped away, all that's left is the real you. And that is the most terrifying mystery of all. If this connected, let me know. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and help us continue growing this community. And if you've got your own Mulholland Drive, whatever form it takes, just know you're not alone in that. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, take care of yourself.